How do you show that the lives of people 10,000 years ago got better when they abandoned hunting and gathering for farming? Are 20th century hunter gatherers really worse off than farmers? Scattered throughout the world, several dozen groups of so called primitive people, like the Kalahari Bushmen, continue to support themselves that way. Okay, so far I think the main who could either be the Kalahari Bushmen or just hunter-gatherers and farmers. So maybe he's going to be comparing them because he asked the questions at the beginning of the text. So I'm going to keep reading to see who most of this text is about. It turns out that these people have plenty of leisure time, sleep a good deal, and work less hard than their farming neighbors. For instance, the average time devoted each week to obtaining food is only 12 to 19 hours for one group of Bushmen, 14 hours or less for the Hasda nomads of Tanzania. One Bushman, when asked why he hadn't emulated neighboring tribes by adopting agriculture, or farming, replied, "Why should we, when there are so many mongongo nuts in the world?" Okay, so thus far, I noticed that he continued to talk about the Kalahari Bushmen. They are a group of hunter-gatherers that still are alive today. And the main what about them is that they have plenty of leisure time, they sleep a good deal, and they work less hard than farming neighbors. He then goes on to give me some more detailed information about the number of hours they work. I'm not going to code that though because I know that main idea is just, the main who, what, and the why. I'm going to keep going now. While farmers concentrate on high carbohydrate crops like rice and potatoes, the mix of wild plants and animals in the diets of surviving hunter-gatherers provides more protein and a better balance of other nutrients. Okay, so I see him comparing farmers to hunter-gatherers of today, and he seems to be saying the main idea here could be that the diets of the hunter-gatherer groups provide more nutrients and more protein than farming communities. In one study, the Bushmen's average daily food intake during a month when food was plentiful was 2,140 calories and 93 grams of protein. This is considerably greater than the recommended daily allowance for people of their size. It's also impossible to imagine that Bushmen, who eat 75 or so wild plants, could die of starvation the way hundreds of thousands of Irish farmers and their families died during the potato famine of the 1840s. Okay, so I've identified the main who and the main what of each paragraph, so I'm ready to write my main idea statement, but I also know that I need to look for evidence for either argument. So I need to ask myself, does anything in this text support the idea that either A, farming did cause or lead to a higher quality life for early humans, or B, farming did not necessarily cause a higher quality of life for early humans? I notice, and I'm just going to use a different color, I noticed that actually the main idea sentences that I chose, I'm going to label them with a C because I noticed that he's arguing that the hunter-gatherers actually have more free time and they work less hard than the farming neighbors. So he directly compares them. And if people have more time to relax and sleep in and they have to work less hard, their quality of life is probably pretty good. So I'm going to say that that could work as evidence to support one argument. And the same thing goes for the sentence about diets. He says that it provides more nutrients and protein than a farming community. Again, a direct comparison, and he's saying one is better than the other. So that is another piece of evidence for the claim that farming did not necessarily cause a greater quality of life. So if I was going to put this in one of my buckets, I would put this in the bucket labeled farming did not improve the quality of life for the early humans.